The red sun of Kepler 442b cast long shadows across a battlefield that stretched beyond the horizon. Smoke rose from countless craters, each one a grave marker for another skirmish in a war that had consumed 300 years. The air tasted of metal and death, and the ground beneath was stained with the blood of two civilizations locked in eternal combat. In the floating crystal city of Velthara, the morning light passed through towering spires that hummed with ancient power. Zephyrians moved like living music through their transparent halls, their crystalline bodies catching and reflecting the dawn in brilliant patterns. They were beautiful creatures, tall and elegant, with faces that seemed carved from precious stones. When they spoke, their voices created harmonies that could shatter rock or heal wounds, depending on their intent. Crystal singer Velthis stood at the highest balcony of the command spire, her body glowing with soft blue light as she reviewed the night's casualties. 3 more outposts had fallen to Mordani bioweapons. 17 of her people had been dissolved by acid spores, their crystal forms melting into useless puddles. The reports came through harmonic frequencies that only her kind could understand, each note carrying the weight of another life lost. She remembered when this war began. Her great-grandmother had told her stories of the first Mordani attacks, when the reptilian creatures emerged from their underground nests and claimed the southern continents. The Zephyrians had been peaceful then, more interested in growing their crystal gardens and composing new harmonies than in warfare. But the Mordani wanted the quintessium mines, the rare mineral that powered both civilizations' technology. They came with living weapons and ships that bled, demanding surrender or death. The Zephyrians had chosen to fight. 3 centuries later, they were still fighting, far below the floating cities. In the vast tunnel networks that honeycombed the planet's crust, Nest Mother Kithara tasted the air with her forked tongue. Her scaled hide bore the scars of 100 battles, and her yellow eyes glowed with the fury of her ancestors. The Mordani were not as graceful as their crystal enemies, but they were fierce and determined. Their bodies were built for war, with natural armor plating and claws that could tear through metal. The breeding chambers around her pulsed with new life. Thousands of warrior spawn grew in organic pods, their DNA carefully modified for maximum combat effectiveness. Some would have acid glands, others would develop explosive organs, and a few would be engineered to resist the harmonic weapons of the Zephyrians. Each generation was an improvement over the last, but somehow the crystal singers always found new ways to kill them. Kithara's memories went back to the early days of the war, when her people had been simple miners and builders. They had discovered the quintessium first, deep in the planet's core, and had built their civilization around harvesting it. Then the crystal beings had descended from their sky cities, claiming the mineral belonged to all the planet's children. When the Mordani refused to share their hard-won discoveries, the Zephyrians had sung their terrible songs of war. The first Mordani city had cracked like an egg, its bio-concrete walls unable to withstand the harmonic assault. Thousands had died in the collapse. That was when Kithara's ancestors had sworn their blood oath of vengeance. They would fight until every crystal singer was dead, or until their own species was extinct. 300 years later, they were still fighting. The war had taken on a life of its own, growing beyond the original dispute over mining rights. Both species had lost so much that stopping would mean admitting that countless generations had died for nothing. The Zephyrians told their children that they fought for the harmony of all life, that the violent Mordani would poison the planet's song if left unchecked. The Mordani taught their spawn that they battled for survival itself, that the crystal tyrants would enslave all organic life if not stopped. Neither story was entirely false. Neither was entirely true. The planet that had once been green and blue was now brown and gray. The oceans had turned acidic from centuries of chemical warfare. The forests had been burned away by energy weapons and bioplagues. Even the quintessium mines that both sides fought over were nearly exhausted, their rich veins stripped bare by 3 centuries of desperate extraction. In the depths of space, far from the dying world, Commander Jake Martinez sat in the captain's chair of the USS Liberty, studying the strange signals his communications officer had detected. The ship was on routine patrol at the edge of human space, checking for pirates or hostile alien activity. It was boring work, but necessary to keep. The trade route's safe. Jake was a career military man, with 20 years of service and gray threads in his dark hair. He had fought in the Titan mining wars and the asteroid belt conflicts, but those had been brief affairs compared to what his sensors were picking up now. The energy signatures suggested a massive ongoing conflict, something that dwarfed anything in human experience. "Captain," called Lieutenant Danny Cooper from the tactical station, "I'm reading multiple weapons discharges in the Kepler 442 system. The energy output is off the charts." Jake leaned forward in his chair. The Kepler 442 system was supposed to be uninhabited according to their star charts. Long-range surveys had detected a potentially habitable planet, but no signs of intelligent life. If there was a war going on there, it meant humanity had discovered not one but two new alien civilizations. "How long have these energy signatures been active?" Jake asked. Cooper checked his instruments. "Sir, based on the light speed delay and the intensity patterns, I'd estimate this conflict has been going on for decades at minimum, maybe longer." Dr. Amy Foster, the ship's xenobiologist, looked up from her research console. She was young for her position, brilliant and curious, with the kind of enthusiasm that made her invaluable on first contact missions. "Captain, if these readings are accurate, we're looking at a technological civilization that's been at war for possibly centuries. The energy expenditure alone would require industrial capabilities beyond anything we've encountered." Jake made his decision quickly. This was too important to ignore, but too dangerous to approach without backup. "Set course for the nearest communications relay. We need to contact Admiral Thompson immediately." As the Liberty changed course and jumped to faster-than-light travel, the war on Kepler 442 be continued. Zephyrian crystal ships danced through the upper atmosphere, their hulls singing death songs that made Mordani biofighters explode in midair. On the ground, Mordani tunnel borers released new plagues that turned crystal formations into dust, while Zephyrian harmonic artillery turned underground cities into tombs. Neither side knew that their eternal war was about to encounter something completely unexpected. Neither could imagine that their ancient conflict was about to be resolved by creatures they had never seen, using methods they had never conceived. The red sun set on another day of battle, and the survivors of both species prepared for another night of war. They had no way of knowing that their 300-year conflict was about to meet a force that would change everything in just 5 hours. In the Crystal Cities, the Harmony Singers composed new battle songs. In the tunnel networks, the bioengineers crafted new weapons. Both sides planned their next attacks, their next strategies, their next attempts to finally achieve victory over their ancient enemies. But victory, when it came, would not belong to either of them. It would come from the stars, carried by beings who saw their endless war not as a sacred duty or a fight for survival, but as a problem to be solved. And humans, as the galaxy was about to learn, were very good at solving problems. Admiral Lisa Thompson stood on the bridge of the USS Constitution, watching the tactical display show the devastation of Kepler 442b. 3 days had passed since Commander Martinez had sent his urgent report about the ongoing conflict. Now, full human task force hung in the outer system, their sensors recording data. That made even veteran officers shake their heads in disbelief. The planet looked like it was dying. Where there should have been blue oceans, poisonous brown water stretched from continent to continent. The polar ice caps glowed with an unnatural green light from some kind of energy weapon residue. Massive craters dotted the surface like smallpox scars, some so large they could be seen from space without magnification. 300 years, whispered Captain Ryan Clark, who commanded the reconnaissance team. They've been trying to kill each other for 300 years. Dr. Amy Foster pulled up geological scans on her workstation. The readings made her stomach turn. "Admiral, the ecological damage is almost beyond repair. The atmosphere has 30% more carbon dioxide than it should. The ocean pH levels are so acidic that most marine life is extinct. If this continues for another 50 years, the planet will be completely uninhabitable. Thompson nodded. Grimly, she was a tough woman who had risen through the ranks during humanity's expansion into space. She had seen war before, but nothing like this. The sheer waste of it all offended her practical nature. What's the tactical situation, Captain? Clark? Ryan Clark had been studying the conflict patterns for days. He was a careful man, methodical in his approach to problems. His team had identified the major population centers and military installations of both species without being detected. The crystalline beings control the northern hemisphere from floating cities. They use energy weapons and some kind of harmonic technology. The reptilian species dominates the south with biological weapons and underground fortifications. Neither side can achieve decisive victory. Show me, Thompson ordered. The main screen shifted to display a real-time image of a battle. In progress. Graceful crystal ships moved through the sky like deadly butterflies, their hulls glowing with contained energy. Below them, organic-looking aircraft that seemed to be alive twisted and dove, firing streams of acid and explosive spores. The engagement lasted only minutes before both sides retreated to lick their wounds. Lieutenant Kate Miller, the ship's communications specialist, had been working around the clock to decode the alien transmissions. She was young and brilliant, with a gift for languages that had made her invaluable on first contact missions. Admiral, I've managed to isolate both species' communication methods. The crystalline beings use complex harmonic patterns. Every word is actually a chord of multiple frequencies. The reptilian species combines chemical signals with subsonic vocalizations. Their language includes scent markers that we can't detect without special equipment. Can we talk to them? Thompson asked. I think so, but it will require specialized equipment. I've been working with the engineering team to build translation devices. We should have prototypes ready within a few days. Ambassador Peter Hughes stepped forward. He was a diplomat with decades of experience in alien relations, though he had never encountered anything quite like this. Admiral, I recommend we make contact with both species simultaneously. If we approach one before the other, it could be seen as taking sides in their war. Dr. Foster looked up from her biological analyses. I've been studying both species from long-range scans. The crystalline beings appear to be silicon-based life forms, possibly evolved from mineral deposits. The reptilian species are carbon-based, but with significant biological modifications. Both are clearly intelligent and technologically advanced. Thompson made her decision. We'll send 2 contact teams. Captain Clark, you'll take a small group and approach the crystalline beings in their floating cities. Commander Jake Martinez will lead a second team to make contact with the underground dwellers. Both teams go in unarmed, but with full defensive shields. We're here to talk, not fight. The first contact mission began at dawn on the 4th day. Captain Clark's shuttle approached the largest crystal city, broadcasting friendship messages on all frequencies. The city was beautiful beyond description, with towers that sang in the wind and bridges made of living light. As they drew closer, harmonic weapons locked onto their ship. Clark activated the communication system Kate Miller had designed. This is Captain Ryan Clark of the human vessel Constitution. We come in peace and wish to speak with your leaders. The response came as a wall of sound that nearly shattered their eardrums. The translation computer worked frantically to decode the harmonic language. After several minutes, words finally appeared on the screen. Unknown bioconstruct. Identify your Mordani controllers or be destroyed. We are not controlled by anyone, Clark replied carefully. We are humans, a species from another star system. We detected your conflict and came to investigate. The crystal ships surrounding them remained hostile, but no weapons fired. After a long pause, a new message arrived. Impossible. Only Zephyrians and Mordani exist in this galaxy. You are a Mordani deception. Meanwhile, Commander Martinez was having similar problems in the underground tunnels. His team had been captured immediately upon entering the tunnel system, surrounded. by Mordani warriors whose bio-armor glistened with toxic secretions. The translation equipment struggled with the complex chemical sound language. "We are not your enemies," Martinez said to the reptilian creatures holding them at gunpoint. "We come from the stars to learn about your people." The Mordani leader tasted the air with a long tongue, analyzing their scent. The translation finally came through. "Crystal Singer lies. No life exists beyond the Sky Dome. You are Zephyrian. Constructs sent to infiltrate our nests." Both first contact missions had reached the same impasse. Neither alien species could accept that a third intelligent race existed. Their worldview had been shaped by 3 centuries of war, leaving no room for the possibility that other beings might inhabit the galaxy. Dr. Foster worked with both contact teams to provide proof of human existence. They showed historical records, star charts, and biological samples that proved humans were neither crystalline nor reptilian. Slowly, grudgingly, both species began to accept that these strange new creatures might be telling the truth. The breakthrough came when Ambassador Hughes arrived at the Crystal City in person. He was a silver-haired man with the patience of a diplomat and the courage of an explorer. Standing before the High Resonance Council, he played recordings of human music, showing how humans also used harmony but in ways completely different from Zephyrian technology. Crystal Singer Velthes was the first to truly understand. Her crystalline form shifted from hostile red to curious blue as she listened to a human symphony. "These sounds, they create harmony without crystal resonance. How is this possible?" "Our species evolved differently," Hughes explained through the translation device. "We create music with organic instruments and voices. We build technology with metals and computers. We travel between stars using engines that bend space itself." The revelation shook both alien civilizations to their core. For 300 years, they had believed they were the only 2 intelligent species in existence. Their war had been framed as a cosmic struggle between order and chaos, crystal and flesh, harmony and biology. The existence of humans shattered. The simple narratives. Ness mother Kithara was even more disturbed by the news. In the deep breeding chambers, she examined human biological samples with growing alarm. "They are neither crystal nor properly biological. Their technology shows no signs of quintessium dependence. How do they power their starships?" "Commander." Martinez explained human fusion technology, showing how humans had learned to replicate the power of stars without mining rare minerals. The concept was so alien to the Mordani that their translation computers initially refused to process it. Both species demanded proof that humans truly came from other worlds. Dr. Foster provided astronomical data showing the location of Earth and human colonies, scientific records of human evolution, and detailed scans of human physiology. The evidence was overwhelming but difficult for war-focused minds to accept. As the days passed, a disturbing pattern emerged. Both alien species were trapped in their conflict, not just by hatred, but by economic and social structures built around perpetual war. The Zephyrians had organized their entire society around crystal weapons manufacturing and harmonic warfare. The Mordani had devoted their civilization to biological weapon development and tunnel fighting. Neither species knew how to exist without their enemy to fight against. Their cultures, their technologies, their very identities were defined by the war. The idea of peace was not just foreign to them, it was terrifying. What would they become if they stopped fighting? Ambassador Hughes realized that ending this war would require more than just negotiation. It would require completely rebuilding 2 entire civilizations from the ground up. Both species were so damaged by centuries of conflict that they could no longer imagine any other way of life. The humans faced a choice. They could leave these aliens to destroy themselves and their planet, or they could intervene in ways that had never been attempted before. Colonel Jack Harrison stood in the war room aboard the USS Constitution, staring at holographic displays that showed 3 centuries of alien warfare. Charts covered every wall, showing battle patterns, weapon systems, and tactical analyses that painted a picture of the most inefficient war in galactic history. Harrison was a veteran of human conflicts, a man who understood warfare from both strategic and practical perspectives. He had fought in the brutal Titan mining wars where human miners had battled corporate security forces in the asteroid belt. He had survived the 3-month siege of Europa Station, where every bullet counted and every mistake meant death. But this alien war baffled him with its sheer wastefulness. "Look at this," he said to Dr. Amy Foster, pointing at a tactical display. 300 years and neither side has figured out how to win. They keep using the same strategies over and over, expecting different results. Dr. Foster nodded, her face grim as she studied the biological warfare data. Both species have become so focused on fighting each other that they've developed tunnel vision. They can't see solutions that might be obvious to an outside observer. Lieutenant. Colonel Maria Santos entered the room carrying a stack of technical reports. She was a military engineer with a reputation for solving impossible problems. During the Mars Rebellion, she had designed the siege engines that broke the rebel fortifications in just 6 days. Her analytical mind saw patterns that others missed. "Colonel Harrison, I've completed my analysis of both alien military systems," she said, spreading blueprints across the central table. "The results are fascinating. Both species have major weaknesses that the other has never exploited." Harrison leaned over the plans. "Show me." Santos activated a holographic projector that displayed a Zephyrian crystal ship. The crystalline beings rely entirely on harmonic resonance for their technology. Their ships, weapons, and shields all operate on specific frequency patterns. But here's the interesting part. They've never encountered an enemy that could jam those frequencies. She switched to a display of Mordani bioweapons. The reptilian species uses living technology that responds to chemical and biological signals. Their weapons are essentially trained organisms that attack specific targets. But they've never faced synthetic pathogens designed to counterattack their bioconstructs. Dr. Foster studied the data with growing excitement. "You're saying that human technology could neutralize both military systems?" "More than that," Santos replied. "Our electromagnetic pulse weapons could disrupt crystal harmonics without harming the crystalline beings themselves. Our synthetic biology could create organisms that shut down Mordani bioweapons while being completely harmless to organic life." Harrison saw the implications immediately. "We could disable their ability to fight without killing anyone?" "Exactly. But it would require perfect timing and coordination. Both species would have to be neutralized simultaneously, or the one still armed would have a massive advantage." Admiral Thompson joined the meeting, her expression serious. Behind her came General Patricia Bell, a formidable woman who commanded the human battle group. Bell was known throughout human space as the Iron Lady, a commander who had never lost a major engagement. Her presence meant that diplomatic solutions were no longer the only option being considered. "Report, Colonel," Thompson ordered. Harrison straightened. "Admiral, we believe we can end this war by force if necessary. Human military technology has natural advantages against both alien species, but the operation would be complex and risky." General Bell studied the tactical displays with the eye of a professional soldier. She had commanded everything from small unit actions to fleet engagements involving millions of troops. The scope of this operation impressed even her experienced mind. "How many ships would you need?" she asked. Santos consulted her calculations. "For complete neutralization?" "At least 50 vessels with specialized equipment. We'd need harmonic jammers for the crystal technology, electromagnetic pulse generators, synthetic biology labs for counter-organisms, and precision strike capabilities for their military infrastructure." Timeline? 2 weeks to prepare the specialized equipment. The actual operation would take approximately 5 hours if executed properly. Bell raised an eyebrow. 5 hours to end a 300-year war? Yes, ma'am. Both species have concentrated their military assets in predictable patterns. They've been fighting the same way for so long that their deployments are routine. We could target every major weapon system simultaneously. Dr. Foster looked troubled. General, what about the psychological impact? These species have built their entire cultures around warfare. Suddenly, removing their ability to fight could cause massive social upheaval. Ambassador Hughes, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. That's a risk we'll have to manage. But consider the alternative. If we leave them alone, they'll finish destroying their planet within a generation. Sometimes intervention is the only humane option. Thompson made her decision. I'm authorizing the preparation phase. Colonel Harrison, work with Colonel Santos to develop detailed operational plans. General Bell, request additional ships and specialized equipment from command. Ambassador Hughes, continue diplomatic efforts with both species. Maybe we can convince them to stop fighting voluntarily. Over the next week, Hughes tried every diplomatic approach he could imagine. He arranged meetings between Zephian and Mordani leaders through human intermediaries. He presented evidence of their planet's ecological collapse. He offered human technology to help repair the environmental damage. Nothing worked. Crystal Singer Velthes listened politely to human proposals for peace talks, but her response was always the same. The song of war cannot end until the Mordani poison is cleansed from this world. Our ancestors demand justice for 3 centuries of suffering. Nest Mother Cathara was equally inflexible. The crystal tyrants must be destroyed completely. Their harmonic weapons have murdered countless generations of our people. Peace is surrender, and surrender is extinction. Both leaders spoke with the fervor of religious believers. The war had become more than a political conflict. It was a sacred duty that defined their species' identity. Neither could conceive of existence without their ancient enemy to fight against. Meanwhile, human engineers worked around the clock to modify their ships and weapons for the unprecedented operation. They developed harmonic jammers that could disrupt crystal technology across an entire continent. They created synthetic organisms that would dissolve bioweapons while leaving natural biology untouched. They programmed targeting computers to identify and disable thousands of military installations simultaneously. Dr. Foster spent her time studying both alien cultures, trying to understand how they might react to sudden peace. What she found worried her. Both species had organized their entire societies around perpetual warfare. Their economies produced nothing but weapons. Their social structures revolved around military hierarchy. Their art, music, and literature all celebrated battle and death. Admiral, she reported, both civilizations are completely militarized. They have no civilian institutions, no peacetime industries, no cultural activities unrelated to warfare. If we suddenly remove their ability to fight, we might cause complete social collapse. Thompson studied the psychological profiles. What do you recommend, Doctor? We need a transition plan. Some way to redirect their energies toward rebuilding instead of destroying. Both species are intelligent and capable. They just need new purposes. Colonel Harrison had been thinking about the same problem from a military perspective. What if we give them a new enemy to fight? Something that requires cooperation instead of competition? What kind of enemy? Bell asked. The environmental damage. Their planet is dying, but it can be saved with enough effort. If we frame the restoration project as a war against ecological collapse, both species might unite against a common threat. Santos nodded enthusiastically. That could work. Instead of fighting each other for depleted quintessium mines, they could work together to develop alternative energy sources. Instead of perfecting weapons, they could perfect restoration technologies. The plan began to take shape. Human forces would disable both militaries simultaneously, then immediately offer technological assistance for planetary restoration. The aliens would be given a choice: work together to save their world, or watch it die while being unable to fight each other. It was a risky strategy that had never been attempted before. If it failed, humanity might find itself at war with 2 alien civilizations simultaneously. If it succeeded, 3 species might forge an alliance that could change the galaxy forever. General Bell received confirmation that additional human ships were en route. The battle group now included 53 vessels, equipped with the specialized technology needed for Operation Clean Slate. Every captain had been briefed on the mission parameters and understood the stakes. As the final preparations were completed, Admiral Thompson stood on her bridge looking at the war-torn planet below. In less than 24 hours, humanity would either end the longest war in known history or start an even bigger one. The decision had been made, and there was no turning back. The 300-year war was about to meet an opponent that neither alien species had ever imagined. At exactly 8 in the morning, Galactic Standard Time, General Patricia Bell gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. All units, commence Operation Clean Slate. Remember, we disable, we do not destroy. Every alien life is precious. 53. Human ships spread across the Kepler 442 system moved as one. They had trained for this moment for 2 weeks, running simulation after simulation until every captain could execute their part of the plan with their eyes closed. Now, as the first phase began, 3 centuries of warfare was about to meet something it had never encountered before, perfectly. Coordinated military action. Colonel Jack Harrison commanded the ground operations from his flagship, watching as the first wave of harmonic jammers activated. The devices had been carefully positioned around every major Zephyrian city during the night, using human stealth technology that neither alien species could detect. Now they came online simultaneously, sending out electromagnetic pulses designed to disrupt crystal resonance patterns. In the floating city of Velthara, Crystal Singer Velthis was preparing for the morning battle briefing when her command spire suddenly went dark. The harmonic crystals that powered the city flickered and died, their beautiful songs falling silent. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows through the transparent corridors as the city began to descend slowly toward the ground. "What is happening?" She sang to her subordinates, but her voice carried no harmonic power. The translation crystals were dead, leaving her words as meaningless sound across the northern hemisphere. Every Zephyrian city was experiencing the same phenomenon. Their crystal ships fell from the sky like wounded birds, landing safely but unable to fly. Their energy? Weapons went silent. Their defensive shields collapsed. In less than 30 minutes, a civilization that had fought for 300 years found itself completely disarmed. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos led the biological warfare phase of the operation. Her ships released carefully designed synthetic organisms into the atmosphere above Mordani territory. The artificial life forms looked like ordinary dust particles, but they carried genetic instructions that would revolutionize biological warfare. In the underground breeding chambers, Ness Mother Kithara watched in horror as her bioweapons began to dissolve. The living ships that had been the pride of her fleet turned into harmless organic soup. Acid spores became neutral water droplets. Explosive organisms transformed into flowering plants that could not hurt anyone. "The Crystal Singers have found a new weapon," she hissed to her war council. "They attack our very flesh with their harmony magic." But her biosensors detected no harmonic frequencies. The attack was coming from above, from the sky itself. Her tunnels remained secure, but every weapon her people had developed over 3 centuries was being systematically neutralized by forces she could not understand. Commander Linda Park controlled the space base of the operation from her heavy cruiser. Her pilots were the best in human space, trained in precision warfare that could disable enemy systems without causing casualties. They moved through the orbital battlefields like dancers, using electromagnetic charges to shut down weapons platforms and kinetic strikes to destroy ammunition depots. Both alien species had filled near orbital space with weapons satellites and automated defense systems. These installations had been firing at each other continuously for decades, creating a deadly shell of military hardware around the planet. In 2 hours, Park's fighters systematically disabled every single platform leaving the orbital space. Clear for the first time in living memory, the most important part of the operation was happening on the communication front. Lieutenant Kate Miller had deployed thousands of translation drones across both territories. These small devices could intercept and translate any form of communication between the two species, breaking down the language barriers that had made Negotiation impossible for centuries. For the first time since the war began, Zephyrians and Mordani could understand each other perfectly. The results were shocking to both sides. Crystal Singer Velthes heard Mordani communications and learned that her enemies called themselves defenders, not invaders. They spoke of protecting their children and preserving their way of life. The harmonic translators had been mistranslating Mordani words for centuries, making peaceful gestures sound like threats and diplomatic offers sound like demands for surrender. Nest Mother Kithara listened to Zephyrian transmissions and discovered that the crystal beings also considered themselves defenders. They sang of harmony and balance, of protecting all life on the planet from chaos and destruction. Their harmonic language had complex meanings that bio-translators had never captured. Turning artistic expressions into military commands, both species realized that they had been fighting a war based on fundamental misunderstandings. The translation. Eras had turned every attempt at peace into a declaration of war. Every diplomatic mission had been seen as a military threat. 300 years of bloodshed had been caused, in part, by the inability to communicate clearly, but understanding. The miscommunication was not enough to stop the fighting immediately. Both civilizations had military commanders who refused to believe the translation corrections. Too much blood had been spilled to accept that it might have been unnecessary. That was when the humans revealed the full scope of their intervention. General Bell appeared on every communication screen and harmonic crystal across the planet simultaneously. Her image was broadcast through the translation network, allowing both species to understand her words perfectly for the first time. People of Kepler 442b, she began, I am General Patricia Bell of the Human Space Forces. As of this moment, your 300-year war is over. Your weapons have been disabled. Your military systems have been neutralized. You cannot fight each other anymore, even if you want to. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Zephyrian commanders tried to activate backup crystals, only to find that every harmonic device on their continent had been jammed. Mordani war leaders attempted to deploy reserve bioweapons, but discovered that every organic weapon in their arsenal had been neutralized. This is impossible, Crystal Singer Velthes sang, though her words now carried no harmonic power. No force in the galaxy could disable our crystal technology so completely. Your harmony magic cannot reach our deep tunnels, Nest Mother Kithara declared. Our bioweapons are evolved from the planet itself. They cannot be destroyed by crystal songs. General Bell's voice remained calm and professional. We are not using crystal technology or biological weapons. We are humans, a species from another star system. We have been observing your conflict. For 2 weeks, we have decided to end it. Both alien leaders demanded proof of these incredible claims. Bell provided it by demonstrating human military capabilities that neither species had imagined possible. Human ships appeared in the skies above major cities, visible to everyone but untouchable by any remaining defensive systems. Dr. Amy Foster's voice joined the broadcast, explaining the ecological damage that 3 centuries of warfare had caused. She showed both species detailed scans of their dying planet, projections of how long their world could survive if the fighting continued, and plans for restoration that would require cooperation between former enemies. Your choice is simple, Foster explained. Work together to save your planet or watch it die while being unable to harm each other. We have removed your ability to make war. Now you must learn to make peace. The psychological impact on both civilizations was devastating. For 300 years, they had defined themselves by their eternal conflict. Their entire cultures, economies, and social structures were built around perpetual warfare. Suddenly, finding themselves unable to fight was like losing their reason for existence. Some Zephyrians attempted suicide, believing that life without the song of war was meaningless. Some Mordani tried to attack human forces with primitive weapons, only to be gently but firmly restrained by Marines who seemed impossibly fast and strong. But others, particularly the younger members of both species, began to see possibilities they had never imagined. Crystal Singer Velthes found herself talking directly to Nest Mother Kithara for the first time in her life, their words translated perfectly by human devices. Your people are not the monsters I was taught to hate, Velthes admitted her, crystalline form shifting from angry red to confused purple. Nor are yours the tyrants our legends described, Kithara replied, her reptilian features relaxing for the first time in years. By 1 in the afternoon, exactly 5 hours after the operation began, every military asset of both civilizations was offline. Not a single soldier from either side had been killed, but their capacity for warfare had been completely eliminated. The 300-year war was over, ended not by victory or defeat, but by the arrival of a third species that refused to let the destruction continue. 1 year after Operation Clean Slate, Captain Ryan Clark stood in what had once been the largest battlefield on Kepler 442b, where poisoned craters had scarred the Earth. New forests now grew in neat rows, where acid rivers had burned through. The landscape, clean water flowed again. The transformation was so complete that it seemed like a different planet entirely. Beside him, a young Zephyrian named Harmony Keeper Lyseth worked alongside a Mordani engineer called Scale Brother Vorthak. They were planting tree saplings that had been specially designed by human botanists to absorb the toxic chemicals left over from 3 centuries of warfare. The sight would have been impossible to imagine just 12 months ago. The soil readings are much better this week, Lyseth said, her crystalline voice creating pleasant musical tones as she spoke. The translation device on her collar converted her harmonic language into words that both humans and Mordani could understand. Vorthak nodded, his reptilian features showing something that might have been a smile. My biosensors confirm this. The synthetic bacteria are working faster than we predicted. At this rate, this sector will be completely clean within 6 months. Clark watched the 2 former enemies work together and marveled at how much had changed. The first months after the war's end had been chaotic and difficult. Both alien species had struggled to find new purposes for their lives when warfare was no longer possible. Some had fallen into deep depression. Others had lashed out in anger at the humans who had forced peace upon them, but slowly, gradually, both civilizations had begun to heal. The breakthrough had come when Dr. Amy Foster suggested reframing the planetary restoration as a war against environmental destruction. Instead of fighting each other, the Zephyrians and Mordani could battle the toxic legacy of their long conflict. The idea appealed to both species' warrior cultures while giving them a constructive outlet for their competitive nature. Ambassador Peter Hughes had established the human diplomatic mission in the planet's equatorial zone, where the old no-man's land between the 2 territories had become a neutral meeting ground. The compound was a marvel of engineering that combined human technology with the best innovations of both alien species. Hughes walked through the mission's gardens, where Zephyrian crystal growing techniques created living sculptures that helped purify the air. Mordani bioengineering had produced plants that could break down chemical weapons residue while providing food for the restoration workers. Human hydroponic systems kept everything growing even in the damaged soil. The ambassador stopped to observe a joint planning session between military leaders from all 3 species. Crystal Singer Velthes and Nest Mother Kithara sat at the same table, their ancient rivalry transformed into friendly competition over who could restore their assigned territories faster. The northern continent restoration is ahead of schedule, Velthes reported, her form glowing with pride. Our harmonic resonance techniques can restructure damaged crystals in the soil, making it fertile again much faster than chemical treatment. Kithara's tail swished with competitive energy. The southern underground networks are being converted to fungal farms that will feed both our peoples. Our biological recycling methods can process 3 centuries of waste materials into useful resources. Colonel Jack Harrison, who now served as the military liaison for the restoration project, reviewed their progress reports with satisfaction. Both species had thrown themselves into the work with the same intensity they had once brought to warfare. The results were exceeding all human projections. Excellent work, both of you, Harrison said. The orbital monitoring stations show that atmospheric toxin levels have dropped 30% planet-wide. If this continues, your world will be completely habitable again within 5 years. The social changes were even more remarkable than the environmental ones. Both alien species had been forced to completely restructure their societies when warfare became impossible. The Zephyrians had converted their weapons factories into facilities for growing musical crystals that could enhance crop growth. The Mordani had transformed their bioweapon labs into medical research centers focused on healing rather than destruction. Lieutenant Kate Miller worked with educators from both species to develop new cultural exchange programs. Young Zephyrians learned Mordani biotechnology while young Mordani studied crystal harmonics. For the first time in centuries, both species were creating art, music, and literature that celebrated life rather than death. The children adapt fastest, Miller reported to Admiral Thompson during one of her regular updates. They're learning each other's languages naturally, without translation devices. Some of them are even developing hybrid technologies that combine crystal and biological techniques. Thompson reviewed the progress reports from her flagship, which now served as the command center for the largest reconstruction project in galactic history. The Admiral had been promoted for her role in ending the war, but she took more pride. In the peace that had followed, the economic transformation had been equally dramatic. Both species had discovered that their technologies complemented each other perfectly when used for construction instead of destruction. Zephyrian harmonic tools could shape crystal and metal with incredible precision. Mordani biological systems could grow organic components that were stronger than traditional materials. Working together, they had built new cities that were marvels of engineering. The structures combined the artistic beauty of crystal architecture with the practical efficiency of biological design. Humans provided the advanced computer systems and power sources that made everything work seamlessly. General Patricia Bell visited the planet regularly to oversee the security arrangements for the reconstruction. Her Marines worked alongside former soldiers from both alien species, teaching them new skills while learning from their unique perspectives on warfare and tactics. Both species make excellent peacekeepers, Bell reported to Earth Command. Their military discipline transfers perfectly to reconstruction work. They approach environmental restoration with the same strategic thinking they once used for battle planning. The most touching changes were happening at the personal level. Former enemies who had spent their lives trying to kill each other were becoming friends, colleagues, and even romantic partners. The first interspecies marriages had been celebrated just 6 months after the war ended, with human diplomats serving as witnesses to unions that would have been unthinkable before. Dr. Foster had established research stations across the planet, where scientists from all 3 species worked together to understand and repair the ecological damage. The cooperation had led to scientific breakthroughs that none of the species could have achieved alone. We've developed a new form of terraforming technology, Foster explained to a gathering of researchers. By combining Zephyrian crystal manipulation with Mordani biological engineering and human computer modeling, we can restore damaged ecosystems in a fraction of the time traditional methods would require. The success of the Kepler 442b restoration project had attracted attention from across the galaxy. Other worlds with environmental problems were requesting human assistance. More importantly, several alien species locked in their own conflicts had asked humanity to mediate their disputes. Admiral Thompson found herself commanding not just a reconstruction effort, but the foundation of what was becoming a galactic peacekeeping organization. The role suited humanity perfectly. They had the military strength to enforce peace and the diplomatic skills to help former enemies learn to cooperate. Jake Martinez, now promoted to admiral, commanded a growing fleet of ships designed specifically for peace enforcement. His vessels carried harmonic jammers, biological neutralizers, and every other tool needed to end conflicts quickly and decisively. We've received 3 more requests for intervention this month, Martinez reported during a staff meeting. The Centauri sector has 2 species fighting over mining rights. The Vega system has a religious war that's been going on for 50 years. The Arcturus colonies are dealing with a trade dispute that's turned violent. The pattern was always the same. Species that have been fighting for generations found their conflicts suddenly ended by human intervention. then discovered that they could accomplish far more working together than they ever had fighting apart. As the sun set over the restored landscape of Kepler 442b, Captain Clark reflected on humanity's unexpected role in galactic affairs. They had set out to explore the stars, and found themselves becoming the galaxy's peacemakers. Children from both alien species played together in the gardens outside the diplomatic mission, their laughter echoing across hills that had once been battlefields. Their games involved cooperation and creation instead of competition and destruction. They would grow up in a world where the 300-year war was just a story from history books. The transformation was complete. A planet that had been dying from endless warfare was now thriving with new life. Two species that had been determined to destroy each other were building a future together. And humanity had learned that sometimes the greatest victories came not from winning wars, but from ending them before they could destroy everything worth fighting for. The galaxy was a bigger, more dangerous place than anyone had imagined.